Hello, good evening and welcome to Business Live. Coming up in this bulletin, total loans granted by banks for the first half of this year hit almost 90 billion cedis, representing a marginal growth over the last year's numbers. We'll be having a discussion on how this affects private sector growth. Also in this bulletin, Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies begins investigations into irregularities in the first half of the year report after suspecting some 2 members misreporting in order to benefit from Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund tax.
For engagement with government, we are seeking engagement with our own members, that's our own oil marketing companies and our own LPG companies, because they say that charity begins at home.
But how does this promote fair competition? We shall be finding answers for you. Plus, 3 associations, including Food and Beverages Association, raised concerns about the operational model of utility companies, insisting they don't deserve any tariff adjustments.
A company like that ever make profit? How can tariff ever solve their problems? Every increase in tariff is like pouring water into a basket, and that is the position of industry. That no matter the amount of tariffs that is put on, that is increased, it will continue to be like we are pouring water in a basket.
We've got details of these and more coming your way all in a moment. Please stay. Always a delight serving you. I am Pius Kojobaka. And look now at our stories. Total loans granted by commercial banks for the first half of this year has hit fresh levels. Data from the Bank of Ghana puts the amount at almost 90 billion cedis. More in this report.
When you compare the amount to the same period for last year, the rate of growth slowed significantly. Now ending June 2024, growth in loans from banks went up by more than 15%, compared to a little over 6% recorded in the first 6 months of this year. Loans to the public sector were the hardest hit, as it declined by more than 30%. In terms of distribution, the services sector accounted for the largest share of the loan disbursement advanced by banks for the first 6 months of this year. It was followed by commerce and finance, while manufacturing sector accounted for just 10%. The mining and quarrying sector remained the lowest recipient of industry credit. Some industry persons are worried about the development, especially at the time that the Bank of Ghana is also working to reduce the amount in circulation as part of effort to try and check inflation in the country. Some are also worried about the impact of this development on growth going forward. This is because most of these firms need the required credit to expand their operations to support growth.
Joining us via Zoom for a conversation on the back of this revelation is a senior finance lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Benjamin Amoah. Pleasure you could join us on Business Live. We are learning that banks' total credit to the private sector and, of course, public institutions dipped to 4.68 billion cedis in June 2025 from the 11.35 billion cedis recorded in June 2024. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Revelation is staggering and surprising, because one will have expected the economy that is on a rebound to be supporting credit, and most importantly, credit to the private sector. What we can see now is just to try to hazard some guess into what may have led to this. And I will say that it is possibly because of the fact that we are in a period where the expectation is for a decline in interest rate. And so if the expectation is a decline in interest rate, then naturally, apart from urgent need for credit, individuals and businesses will adopt a wait-and-see attitude till they get to have a firm idea of what the rate is in terms of the turning point of the rate. actually in a decline mode. So that when they realize that rates are having a turnaround, then we want to put in massive loan requests. We should also not forget that we have come from a period where the central bank has complained time and time again about high non-performing loans. Now, the picture that we are having now, is it a case that the banks are responding to the high non-performing loans by shying away from extending new credit and indirectly pursuing government securities? It is something that we need to look at, because if the credit sector is not supportive for the banks, then naturally the banks will have to look for alternates. And the alternate that easily comes in is the government instrument. That will not help in terms of business growth and business development, because you need credit to the private sector to prepare growth, to create the expansion, and then to create jobs. So if the response from the supply side is that because the environment and the culture is not credit supportive, so banks will shy away from credit, then it can be what we are seeing. Now, is it also a one-period drop because we're looking at a year-on-year, or is going to be something that is going to be sustained? If it is going to be sustained going forward, it is going to be very problematic for us as a country and as an economy, because you need the credit to turn and keep turning the engines and turbines of factories to keep running. And so if credit is not coming from the banks, it will create some serious problem for the economy going forward. So for now, without having much details into what may have led to the sudden drop in credit, I'll say that one, it is because of the expectations that rates are going to decline, and two, because of the high non-performing loan rate. That is what may have caused banks to take off the pedal of the loans that they are being given for some time now.
And Dr. Amoah, if you could help me with this, a careful study of the report shows that credit inflows or flows to the private sector declined to 6.69 billion cedis in June 2025 from what was recorded the previous year. Now, you are saying that it would have a cascading effect on private sector growth. Now, again, we have a favorable economic climate. Interest rates have been dropping, and of course, the policy rate has also been dropping. So how do we reconcile these two?
Yeah, this is something that the central bank and maybe the Ministry of Finance, together the banks, will have to sit down and look at what is actually causing this slow in credit growth. Is it the case that, like I said earlier on, the supply side, the banks are refusing to extend their credit because of the credit environment we find ourselves in? Because you cannot force the banks to create loans when the environment is not supportive. The central bank has expressed concerns already that NPL rates are high. Two, is it also the case that the demand side, businesses, consumers of financial services like you and I, are shying away from going for credit? That means that we do not have profitable business opportunities within the economy to reason why we have to go for credit. We need to also look at it. So the central bank will have to sit down, look at the data, and then try to look at whether it is a demand side challenge or a supply side challenge. The rates are declining. And if the rates are declining, from the strategy point of view, until you have an urgent need for credit, you have to wait till the credit rates get to a point where it is at its lowest before you go into borrow, because rates are declining. And if you look at the data, it is going to decline further. So it can be the behavior from the demand side to wait and see. All of this will have to be investigated by the regulator, maybe the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Trade, and then also the banks to see where the cause is coming from. But don't forget, this is half of last year and then half of this year. We have had a regime change. So we also want to look at how that may also impact or maybe contributing to what we are seeing from the credit to private sector space.
As someone who understands the industry much better, how concerning should this be on the table of the Bank of Ghana as they engage the various banks, I think quarterly engagement with the banks?
Yeah, you're rightly so. The central bank will have to worry because you need your banks to be intermediating, mobilize the deposits, and then create the loans. That is why the banks were giving the license. But then, of course, You can't force the banks if the terrain for credit is not good. If the macro environment is not good, you cannot force them. You made a point that rates are declining, inflation is declining. So one would have expected that naturally loan growth will be very high, but we are not seeing that now. So it means that there may be some fundamental issues that exist that the regulator will have to look at. Maybe the banks are prepared to give credit, but the demand side of the economy is not prepared now to assume the credit that the banks are prepared to provide. Don't forget, the banks are also in the business to make money. This lower rate of credits on the market implies lower profit for banks because banks make a chunk of their profit from loans. So if the banks are refusing to give out the loans, then it's most likely there is a fundamental issue within the economy that the central bank will have to investigate. I'll not be able to put my hand on what the problem is, but I believe that when the central bank engages the industry players, they will be able to figure out what the problem is. If it is not a supply side issue, it is most likely to be a demand side problem where consumers like you and I are simply refusing to go for credit.
Senior Finance Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Benjamin Amoah, thank you so much for your time this very moment. I'm grateful. Now, the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies has begun investigations into data released by some members for petroleum consumptions across the country in the first half of the year. According to the Chamber, these companies have reported a significant growth in volume, especially in the Upper East and Upper West regions. A situation very alarming. More in this report.
Petroleum consumption for the half-year 2025 indicates the Upper East region recorded the highest growth at 80.23%, followed by the Ashanti region with 22.20% increase. The Upper West and Eastern regions also experienced substantial gains. No decline was recorded in the first half of 2025, unlike the 3.85% decrease experienced by Volta region during the same period in 2024. According to the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, this cannot be a true reflection of the situation on the ground. Here is Chief Executive Dr. Rivesinopon.
So, indirectly, we are telling you that there are concerns around the figures, some of the figures that our outlook projects. And we are seeking for engagement with government. We are seeking engagement with our own members. That's our own oil marketing companies and our own LPG companies, because they say that charity begins at home. And the letters went last week on Wednesday, and I believe that in due course, after the engagement is done, we will let the public also know what is going on, and obviously go further to engage MPA to understand how that could be and what should be done to make sure that we operate in a very fair market.
Meanwhile, board chairman of the chamber, Gabriel Kumi, wants a total scrap of the Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund, which is paid by consumers on every litre of fuel purchased. He expressed concerns that the fund is being abused by members.
We are saying the UPPF has outlived its usefulness. It has to be scrapped. We need to take it off, because now UPPF is charging almost 1 cedi. If it takes it off, we have almost 1 cedi off your pump price. And let nobody deceive you that competition, what people are going to charge high price because they travel on a longer distance. Anybody who does that, the keen competition we are experiencing in the sector will kick you out.
The Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund has been introduced to support the transportation of petroleum products to other parts of the country without price changes.
Let's expand the conversation further on the back of this. Joining us now is the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, Duncan Amoah. Duncan, grateful you could make time to speak to us here on Business Live. Does it also come to you as a surprise hearing that the Upper East and Upper West regions recorded a significant growth in volume? Does it?
I think that the Ghana Revenue Authority should be interested in the kind of economic activities that pertains to those peculiar regions. Oftentimes, when you have petroleum volume upsurge, you are simply dealing with an indication of some economic activity boom within those places. So the expectation will be that around the time that these regions are experiencing these sharp increases. Perhaps some particular economic activity is leading to these numbers that we are recording. If it is also the issue of maybe galamsey pertaining there, for which you would need more fuel to be able to power these excavators and other mining equipment, I think that the country should be concerned about, because naturally you've not seen a surge in industry. You've not seen a surge in some other sectors of the economy, services, mining, or production. So whatever is accounting for these numbers, I think that, like Dr. Opon rightly reiterated, we should be interested as a country in knowing what exactly is consuming these numbers, especially in our border towns. Is it the case that we are smuggling products across border to other places? But whatever it is, I think that the state itself should be interested. And again, the oil marketing company should be interested. If it is the case that there's a genuine increase in economic activity in those corridors, I'm sure that it would also be a good information for the other oil marketing companies that may not, as we speak, even be cited in those places. So it needs some thorough interrogation, and I am happy that Dr. Opon indicates that they themselves are interested in a scrutiny, and we will support that. That's right. Totally.
All right. So again, the chamber is making a point, and they believe that this could be as a result of misreporting in order to benefit from the Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund tax. But my argument here is that, which means there is a problem somewhere. How does this promote fair competition, really?
Indeed, they are right. It's one of the things I was struggling not to say, but since they already are discussing that, you have the diversions that happen oftentimes. People will load products, and destination would probably be the upper regions. The products will get to the mid region. It is offloaded, and then some way, somewhat, way bills are signed in the upper regions to say that the products were brought here. And so, if you are not careful, you record very high volumes. That says that we've loaded from Tema, we've gone to these regions with the products, and presumably we are loading more because the region has consumed. But these products may end up in other regions, not necessarily the farthest distance, because somebody clearly will need to go and make a claim on the UPPF. And I support, again, Gabriel Kumi when he says that the UPPF has got to be thoroughly investigated. There's a lot of rent seeking on the UPPF. People are collecting monies from you and I per liter. Anybody buying petrol now is paying monies to some faceless people who would end up getting enriched. Not just the transporters who probably haul the products genuinely. There are some other additions on the UPPF that does not meet the eye. And so I support the board chairman for the Chamber Oil Marketing Companies when he says that we need to scrutinize that also, because it's one of the variables driving fuel prices very high. In the past, we have inputted charges on the consumer that has not gone to Parliament for approvals. We have just added onto the UPPF that should have been around 40-45 pesos to now get to almost 1 Ghana cedi. We should be interested, because if you took off some of these unnecessary padded figures that we have added, which is enriching some group of people, I think that the consumer will be well off, will be better off by a minimum 40-50 pesos. And I think that that amount would also even allow some competition further between the OMCs, because sometimes the OMCs would have to struggle to squeeze their own margins to be able to stay competitive. Yet, others who don't invest anything of any significant value to the industry are simply ripping all of us off. And I challenge not only the Parliamentary Select Committee on Mines and Energy, but equally the ministry to go into the UPPF and be thorough about it, because Ghanaians are being fleeced. And I think that we cannot continue to allow this era of ripping off to continue. The UPPF probably is outliving its usefulness. If we would want to continue paying the transporters fair and well, but the other charges that we have added on the UPPF, which has not gone to Parliament for any approvals, it is high time we took them off completely, just to save the consumer from the burden of these rising fuel costs.
All right, Duncan, before we go quickly, we know some OMCs are yet to, adjust their prices at the pumps. And do you think whatever decision they may arrive at may have basically affect, transport fares?
Clearly, some have already adjusted their prices, although we didn't get much of an announcement to that. And so as I speak with you, diesel above 14, petrol above 13. I have always said that we are simply arcing towards the pre-January 2025 levels. If that happens, we are one of the organizations that have almost always had to work with the transport operators. Recently, a body was asking for increase in transport fares. We indicated it wasn't fair, it wasn't proper. That was shelved. We continue to engage them, but if we get to the pre-January levels, we are simply not going to be in a position to tell the transport operators any further not to increase transport fares, because when fuel prices began declining from the 14.99, we asked the transport operators to reduce their fares. Some did some 15% reduction. So if you are going back to that level, you are simply telling them to come back and increase transport fares. And I think that the Ghanaian authorities should be interested in ensuring we don't get to those levels, because once we get there, it's a natural order that our transport fares would also go up.
All right, thank you very much, Duncan Amoah, Executive Secretary of COPEC. Grateful for speaking to us here on Business Live. You're still watching Business Live. We have more for you shortly. Welcome back to Business Live. Quickly, 3 business associations, including the Food and Beverages Association, have raised concerns about the operational model of utility companies in the country. Now, they have therefore argued that these firms don't deserve any hike in tariffs if steps are not taken to address their inefficiencies. They've been speaking at a news conference.
I've invited you here to help us make an agent and a clarion call to the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, and the NDC government that Ghanaians massively voted for in the last general elections.
We shall be bringing you more in our subsequent bulletins. That's it for Business Live. I am Pius Kojo Baka.